Welcome back to the Sharpest College Football Podcast, brought to you by LeanTossup Sports. This is BuckMetrics, bringing to you part two of this week's podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Robert Martin. Robert, I've got a sneaky question for you. Are you concerned about this week?
Um, are you referring to Florida?
I'm referring to the number of plays that not to be a spoiler here. This time of the year, they usually, as I said before last week, this is when the number of plays dries up, and there are a lot of plays this week, and I'm kind of wondering if there's something wrong with my model, although most of these are confirmed by your model. So maybe both our models were hacked by North Korea.
Maybe. I will say, though, this week there is one that when I found out about it, I was like, I can't wait to play this. And now that I know what the spread is, I'm just licking my lips. I think, like, anytime I win a bet, I'm just going to put more money on that one. Like, just take a little bit and put, like, we'll get to that one, though. But,
Yeah.
man, one I'm looking for. And, yeah.
There's another one that's got the same dynamic in more than one way that you're going to be, I'm pretty sure, a lot less excited about. But if you want to go against the dual model plays, be my guest.
I smell an undercoming. All right.
Yeah. All right. We'll go through my metrics. Top 20 strength of record. Now, we're doing this on a Monday night, so I don't have the latest college football playoff rankings, which will probably be released by the time you're watching this. Big mover for me is Alabama with the big win this weekend. You've got them they were at number 8 in the college football playoff rankings. I don't think they'll move into the top 4. For several reasons. Obviously, they're undefeated, or they're not undefeated, but doesn't surprise me. They've had a sneaky tough strength of schedule. Their only loss is to Texas, who has their faults, but that's not by any means a bad loss. They've just, as you said in part one, they've just answered every question since that whatever happened at South Florida, which is going to be maybe just a sneaky, unforgettable moment of this season. Washington moves up into the top 4 here with that nice home win over Utah. Sneaking over a little bit to column 2 for a second, Oregon moved up. I barely had them in the top 20 last week. They moved up to number 13 with a nice win over USC. Liberty at number 9. I don't know. Maybe at some point somebody will get it outside me, you, and now Bud Elliott. Thank you, Bud. I don't think they'll include Toledo at number 17 because they probably don't even know what a Toledo is, nor do they know what a Troy is, who sneaks into my top 20. It'll be interesting to see if number 20 in my rankings, Oklahoma State, stays in their top 25 after that, whatever that was in Orlando.
Gonna go with no on that one. I will. Yeah, a couple things there. We'll just quick note to the absolute, possibly all-time worst bad beat of that Washington -8/8.5. I had -8.5.
Mm-hmm.
Should have easily won that. Shouldn't even have been close. Guy, defensive score. It's actually funny. I was watching that with my girlfriend actually live, and she just was laughing. And she doesn't know football, so that's kind of really funny to her. But defensive player gets the ball, runs it towards the end zone, then drops it. And again, like, usually when that happens, it's like it would go over the line. It literally dropped. Yeah. He dropped it perfectly 1 yard. You can't even make, like, he literally dropped it perfectly and it stopped just, like, literally perfectly shy so that there could be no doubt whatsoever that the ball.
No. Yeah.
And then again, a horrible missed field goal that also would have put it over the top as well. And again, I think Washington had 4 penalties on when they were going for 4th down because Washington is good at offense and they were like, we don't want to punt right now, but then they committed some sort of stupid penalty, either a hold or something, and then they did that again. I also had Michael Penix over 2.5 at +140. I feel robbed on that one as well, but whatever. Sad. Washington still good, but should have been a lot better against a Utah team there. Other than that, this does line up pretty well. It is interesting though with Georgia though, because it's it kind of sets it up perfectly because when we talk about the SEC championship game as basically being a play-in for the college football playoff, Alabama has a tougher strength of schedule than Georgia, right? So while if it was flipped, if Georgia was the one that had one loss and Alabama was undefeated, you could theoretically make the case that if Alabama had lost, they could still, but they're not a conference champion, which is apparently a very important title that they put a lot of weight into. But at the same time, because of the strength of record, theoretically Bama could have survived that, but they can't. But Bama has the tougher strength of schedule. So if Georgia loses, they're done. And like if you want to start making tiebreakers between one loss Georgia or one loss Georgia slash one loss Michigan slash Ohio State, whichever one loses that game, there would be no tiebreakers there because those would basically be at the exact Georgia would be worse than them because of the strength of schedule, right? Because Michigan and Ohio State obviously would have played each other, which is not reflected here yet, but obviously will be when it's come out, and they both would have played Penn State. So this is where this ends, and it's like Georgia's strength of schedule, and again, it's not their fault because they don't get to control. They can't could you imagine if Georgia signs other people to the portal? They're like, hey, okay, Tennessee and Florida, we're gonna help you get some portal transfers so we can make you look better, get you an extra couple wins for the year, so can help our strength. Could you imagine? That's Kirby Smart next level. They're like, we have to help our opponents
Yeah.
to up our strength of schedule to get us into.
Oh
But
my
no,
god.
they don't control that though, right? So it's not their fault, but it's worked out pretty poorly for them this year on that. So
Yeah, and they did have that non-conference game against Oklahoma that was canceled because they couldn't make up the second half of it. One as a non-conference and one as a conference game.
yeah,
So, not for lack of trying there. You didn't mention that missed Washington field goal. It was only a 32-yard attempt, and it wasn't even close. He literally kicked it into the posterior of one of the linemen, his own lineman. It was just about as bad as a kick as you can even possibly ever see. You also mentioned that your girlfriend doesn't get football. I would say also that the gentleman that was running back that interception doesn't get football either. As I don't know, ball needs to go over the goal line. I thought they kind of taught that
yeah.
in
You
practice, but
sell it he tried to do that whole the throw it into the ground and then it the one celebration where you chuck it into the ground and it spins, but he really screwed that up. So yeah, that was
I I really thought after Chad Johnson did that in the Fiesta Bowl and got away with it, that I would never see that again. And yet here we are. And
yeah.
yet here we are. Yeah. All right, my top 20 teams based on my power rankings. Ohio State, interestingly, moves a little bit ahead of Michigan. They were basically tied last week. I guess Ohio State was a little more impressive in their blowout of, I don't even remember who they played already. They played not a really good team, but it wasn't even close. Or am I just
Michigan
forgetting
State.
something? Okay, well, there you go. Okay. So for whatever that's worth, Oregon in the top four. I think Notre Dame might have passed them. I think really weird
In
stuff.
yards.
Yeah, in mine, and I think that Notre Dame was off last week. I think that's because Oregon, like I mentioned, Oregon's defense is just it's just slipping down my top 20. And maybe that's just because they played some really good offenses recently. Um, Liberty number 7, not a surprise to us. Kind of surprised to see Oklahoma this high, although my model really likes their offense. Tennessee at number 9, that'll be interesting. Hold on to that thought for later. Oregon State at 11. I guess. I mean, they've been really impressive, and man, they just beat up Stanford really bad. No new teams in the top 20 though. I'm a lot higher on SMU than you are. You have them number 30. You like Louisville more than I, although personally I think Louisville's a little bit underrated here at number 20, and they have an interesting game this week as well. So I don't know what strikes you in my top 20 here.
I will say that you and I both have Oregon State and Washington as pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
They're not ranked close by the AP or I think the CFP, but the books agree with us because the spread there is -1. Uh, I think you do have Oregon State fully ahead of Washington by 3 spots. I have Washington 1 spot ahead of Oregon State, so not a huge difference there. Um, but I also do have Oregon State favored this week too. So I think we both are like Washington could be in trouble this week.
Yeah, and that's not a. I don't think that's on the slate of games we're going to talk about. So we might as well talk about that one now. Actually,
Yeah.
when I adjusted for venue, I have Oregon by 4.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, even though you've got them just one spot, one spot away from each other, your sim actually has Oregon State by 6.
Yeah.
Interestingly, so neither of those margins are big enough to be dual model plays, but it's interesting that we both have those have the Beavers
Mm-hmm.
there by at least one score, 3 and or
Mm-hmm.
4 and 6
I think
points.
Oregon State beating Washington could really put a kind of spanner in the next couple of weeks here. It could really screw up some stuff.
Yeah,
And I think because the thing is, and I mean, poor Oregon State. I mean, their conference dissolves around them, and they're looking pretty good. They're not in the running for college football playoff, but like they have to play Washington, and the week after they have to play Oregon. What's that? That's ridiculous. Like now, to be
I'm sorry.
fair,
What? USC just did that. I don't remember you crying for USC. They just did
no,
that.
that's true. Yeah, but I mean. Now Oregon State could have a really they could do something really funny here if they were to beat both Washington
Yeah.
and Oregon. They could eliminate. I think they could actually eliminate the Pac-12, and then if things fell their way, they may actually make the Big 12 championship game. Or the Pac-12 championship game. I think.
No, that was a good slip. They just take them both.
Yeah.
Actually, if they won both, then they would knock Oregon out because they would have
The
they
tiebreaker,
both
and
have
they'd have two
they
losses.
have tiebreaker. Yep, exactly.
So they would take Oregon's place in the.
And then they have to play Washington again.
And they
be
would
fun.
eliminate they eliminate the Pac-12 from the college football playoff. And to be fair, you could sub them in for Iowa. They'd give Ohio State / Michigan a much better fight than Iowa in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, they would.
So yeah, here's the thing: Pac-12 championship games on Friday. If they play in that game, they either win or lose. You just fly them out to Indiana. There is no difference between Oregon State playing the day before versus Iowa. There's no difference. They're the same team.
No,
You can't convince me otherwise.
It would. No.
Yeah. It's interesting. We have some huge divergence on Oklahoma and Tennessee. You're like, they're okay. I'm like, they are not okay. I'm like, they are not good. And also Notre Dame. My model still hates Notre Dame. Your model seems to like Notre Dame. Yeah. So it's weird where we have huge divergences. But then it's like most of the time we are mostly in alignment, but then we have huge divergences sometimes, and it's like, yeah, okay. Liberty, we're off by 1 there. Florida State off by 3. Oregon State off by 2. My model still loves Texas, but that love is fading slowly. This week, I'm not sure if we're talking about that, but that spread opened at 7.5. That is 1,000,000% a trap line. That is go ahead, bet Texas, we dare you. I thought it would be higher than that. I thought it would be like 10.5. Like 7.5 is the book saying, go ahead, we dare you. Go ahead. Bet Texas.
Yep.
Have fun.
No. Like we say,
they're
I
literally
call it the line it's the line that stinks. It seems to be like a thing in the Big 12. Just really in the Big 12.
Yeah. It's like now my model actually I think does have Texas. I'm not sure. I think my model actually has Texas on the spread there, but nope, that's a trap. That's very clearly a trap. 1,000%. And again, they did not cover against TCU, and it's funny because we talk about the sequel to to be able to run when they know we're going to run. Texas in the fourth quarter, there was I think 2 minutes left in the game. They had a 3rd and 13 from their own 20-yard line. TCU had no timeouts, and the clock had stopped. So Texas had to convert a 3rd and 13. If not, they were in deep trouble. This was not it's garbage. No. If TCU had the momentum, if they did not convert that, they were in deep trouble. They could have not only just gotten to overtime, they could have lost that game. But the best part is Quinn Ewers passed it, and he actually underthrew it, and Adonai Mitchell had to come back and caught it, and that actually helped them because he had to come back. He was able to basically outduel the cornerback. So him underthrowing the ball saved them. But that is insanely close to beating a TCU team. And again, we said that 12.5 looked suspicious last week. Turns out it was. Again, this team should probably not be 9-1. There probably should have been a loss or two there, and we'll have to see this week. But yeah, my model is slowly saying like Texas. I think I had Texas like 2 or 3 before. That's down to 5. My
Yeah.
model is slowly starting to say, yeah, okay, Texas is there's some problems here, but um, yeah.
Yeah. The concerning quote that you had there, which is accurate, is TCU had the momentum. That's not something that we've said a lot this year. And you're doing that. And now, granted, it was at TCU, so there's a little bit of a forgivable element to that. But man, they've been just a not an impressive team this season. And yeah, I don't know. They had Quinn Ewers back too, so it wasn't like you can blame that one on Malik
Yep.
Murphy. And before we move on here, I think this is just kind of curious if you could buy this. My model only looks at what you've done, and your model looks at how you would do against everybody
Hmm.
versus, based on what you've done.
Hmm.
And I would go back to what I said last week about Notre Dame's great against bad defenses, and they stink against everybody else. So it's probably taking that same element and just saying, okay, yeah, they're going to lose to basically most of the top 25, and they're going to beat 26 through 133. And my model just says, hey, they've been pretty good overall against everybody, but it's not kind of taking that. It's adjusting for strength of schedule, but it's not looking in the granularity of, okay, they can't beat these kind of teams. So does that make sense? I think
Hmm.
that's probably why we have that
Yeah.
divergence there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. There's that divergence. Also, LSU is a divergence there too. It's probably something along the lines of like, yeah, LSU is good and they can score a lot of points, but that only
Yeah.
gets you so far until you actually get a team that has a defense. At which point, then they'll
Exactly.
score 50, but then you can only score 30, right? So,
Yep. Yep. Exactly. All right. Speaking of which, man, it's kind of funny to remember. At one point, Washington was the top offense in these rankings, and LSU is ahead of them by 10 points now, almost now. Mike, they're a touchdown ahead of the number 2 team, which is nuts. And just for reference, I got to look this up. This is again ahead of that 2019 LSU team, the offense at least. Um, what else? Nothing really new here except for Missouri jumping in, which is a little bit of surprise because their offense has been good all season. They were good against Tennessee. I think a Tennessee defense that I think my model likes, so maybe that's what pushed them up. It was kind of surprising that they weren't in the top 20 until this week. Otherwise, not too many surprises here on my end. What about you?
yeah, no, these seem mostly in line with the expectation. I will say that Ohio State is interesting that it's interesting that it's one so high and yet two also still so low. I think people are like, oh, like people have criticized Ohio State saying, "Oh, the offense just isn't there," and I would like to remind them that basically Michigan and Penn State scored basically the same amount of points. Again, they scored basically the same amount of points against Penn State. I think right. Um,
About,
Basically the same
yeah.
score. About they
Yeah,
both
that
won
seems
by
like,
9
yeah.
or 10. I think.
It
I think
was
Ohio
like,
State actually
yeah,
won by more.
I think they both had low to mid 20s.
Hmm. So that's the thing, right? I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, Ohio State's offense is bad." It's like, well, their offense is good, but not like amazing level. And like they crush Michigan State, and I think people are going to say, "Oh, well, they beat Michigan State by less than." I think they scored only. What did they score? They scored only 35 this week. What they score?
That
But I think
sounds right.
the,
Yeah.
the thing is they had 38 to 3, and so they I think they missed the spread by point 0.5. Nope, they covered the spread. They covered the spread. Depends on when you bet the spread, but yeah, they covered by the Vegas spread. But no, it's I think people like Michigan scored more against Michigan State, but to be fair, that is a rivalry game, and that was the week that the allegations came out. So Michigan wanted to really put it to Michigan State, and they did. So I don't believe that Ohio State is bad just because they're not hanging 50 on bad teams. Like they're a really good team, and the strength of this through the defense. Michigan Ohio State the game, not this week but next week is going to be a, that's going to I am going to try to like I'm trying to push my family to get all of our Black Friday shopping done on Friday night. I'm like, "Oh, we don't need to go out on let's
Oh,
go shopping on Friday night. We don't need to go out on Saturday." And then
oh
like
no.
And like you, for some weird reason, it's American Thanksgiving weekend that my family's like, oh, we should rake leaves now. So like I'm gonna be like, okay, guys, let's rake leaves on this weekend. Let's do it let's this Sunday. Let's go rake the leaves. Like I'm trying to get like I want to see this game. I want to sit down, have a nice drink, nice little Diet Pepsi, sit there and have some snacks and watch this game. Because it's going to be an incredible game. I'm excited for this game in 2 weeks.
Yeah, about that criticism too about Ohio State. Reminder when they did that graphic about McCord and just those really really past defenses that are really good that he's faced. Compared to McCarthy, who's had a much easier slate, and since then, McCord did face Rutgers, so I don't know if they're still top 10, but I think they're a top 10 passing defense. So I really think that I'll update the graphic. I'll just say that I'll be interested to see what it tells.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really interesting. It was very interesting how little. Well, I think McCarthy threw 8 passes. Does that sound right at Penn State?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
about right. Yeah.
that's interesting to me. And McCord threw for 280 yards
Yeah,
against the same
that is
defense.
interesting. It's interesting that they like with when the apps because I noticed that too. I feel like and now this may or may not have been Harbaugh. I don't know how exactly how much influence he had over this, but I could see that being both ways. I could see him being don't trust McCarthy, run the ball. Or them being like, okay, well, without Harbaugh, we don't really know what he would call for plays, so let's just run the ball, right? I don't know which way that worked, but clearly they were like, we are just going to run the ball. We think we have a good matchup against Penn State on the running game. We are just going to run the ball. Like, I'm sorry, you don't pass for 9 yards in an FBS game. You are not Iowa. You are Michigan. There's a couple states difference there. You are not Iowa. Like, and I mean, okay, it worked. I mean, I guess Brian Ferentz was sitting there taking notes, but like, I don't understand why that was maybe they were really really scared of McCarthy versus Penn State secondary. I know, but the thing is, at the same time, McCarthy's gotten a lot of like. Some people are saying like he's going to be a first round quarterback. Some people are even saying like they're either. I've heard some things where it's basically like he's either going to be like compete to be the first one off the board or like the fifth one off the board. Like kind of like a very boom or bust opinion on him. And I kind of I think he's just going to be a good, not great NFL quarterback. But the fact that Michigan basically just said, like, no, we're going to run the ball, I think that speaks volumes about their faith in him, if that makes sense. I think that's them saying, we don't completely trust this guy. And if they don't trust him in a big game when you don't have your head coach there, I'd say that's concerning. So,
Yeah, yeah, interesting to say the least. And then speaking of which, okay, yeah, Penn State is the best defense that they'll face this year, but not far behind them is Ohio State right there. So, are we going to see a drastic difference? I don't know. Um, it's kind of an interesting little stat to wrap that one up. Um, Clemson jumped in at number 8 from out of the top 20. Couple of big weeks for them. Um, and hey, farewell, Jimbo. Here's your parting gift. Your team plus your 76 million or whatever it is. Your team jumped into the top 20 of my defenses. And there is also at number 18 Oregon. Like I said, I had them like at number 7 just a few weeks ago. Now they've played some tough offenses the last couple weeks, but just something to keep an eye on. Although, well, it'll be interesting. This is interesting right here. This against, if we go back to the offenses, that will be a fascinating matchup against Oregon State's more highly ranked offense by my. I think you ran a sim on this one too, and you had Oregon. I think you had Oregon beating basically everybody in your sims, huh?
yeah, I
This
think
week,
so.
yeah. So, anyways, yeah, Clemson, good job. You finally found your defense after 11 weeks, and yay, Jimbo. Number 19 in defense. But you're not a defensive guy. No real surprises for me other than that. Even Texas A&M belonged there, so nothing else for me to really comment on this one. How about you?
No, this makes a lot of sense. But yeah, again, 4 Big 10 teams, top defenses.
Yeah.
The stereotype is real. But no, I mean it's yeah, it's. I I don't know why it is that way. I don't think, like, if you looked at this, you'd be like, oh, I guess people from the Midwest are good at playing defense. I guess but yeah, they do have the best defenses in the game, right? And I kind of think this, like, let's just if it's Michigan or Ohio State in the college football playoff, I kind of think it's going to be Ohio State, but whatever. I don't know who wins. Like, let's say Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and let's do FSU. Who wins? I don't know.
Yeah. Um,
Like,
it's going to be interesting. There's so much insularity in that Big Ten, you know. And then the other thing too is Michigan's played nobody all season outside of Penn State. Ohio State had that big game against Notre Dame and it was close, but you know Kyle McCord's a very different quarterback right now, so I don't know how much I would read into that. I don't know. I don't know. I think to that point, Ohio State Michigan's going to be really really instructive. Since that's clearly the game for both teams in terms of what's going to be most telling. Oh, and should mention Iowa's the new number one. Sad James Franklin was passed by Iowa, shutting out Rutgers in just an absolute barn burner. What a great game that was.
I normally I don't bet a lot of unders, but I did bet the under in that game, and it was 0-0 in the end of the first, and I said, I'm gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
We actually got lucky because I had that too, and then there was a interception on the second to last play of the first half that would have otherwise resulted in a Rutgers field goal. And even then, Iowa had a total of 22, and the total for the game was 28.5. I think that's what I got. It might have closed lower.
I think Iowa. I had 28.5 too. I think if Iowa had scored again, we would have been in trouble. And I think they were kind of pushing, but I think they just we're just going to end the game.
They took a knee at Rutgers 5-yard line, so it was dangerously close. So that kind of undoes the pain of the Washington game. All right, group of 5, top 10. San Jose State up a spot, legitimizing that unforeseen jumping into the top 10 last season. You still have them number 12 under the group of 5. I can see your model not liking Miami of Ohio, especially because they lost their quarterback and yours is a little more forward looking. Interesting. Coastal jumped into the top 10. That Tim Beck Magic just took a little time, I guess. And you're not too far off at number 14. Coastal really put it on Texas State this last week too.
I don't know what happened there.
Of that. Yeah. The Tim Beck Magic, it just took some time, I guess.
Yeah. I will say that, again, neither of us have Tulane here at all. And, I think that's really funny. That, like, the one team that the CFP is ranking, we're like, nope, you are not worthy of like, you should, they're like, no, we're like, nope, you shouldn't be here. Nope.
What's their protocol then? Like, once Tulane actually loses, they say, well, who was good back in, 2021 that we can rank? I guess.
Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. Boise was good. Should we rank them? No, guys.
Like, I mean, it is so abundantly clear that the only reason Tulane is where they are is because they beat USC in the con. Like, that's literally the only reason. And they're like, okay, well, Tulane's probably the best, and they have the best loss of the season, which was to Ole Miss. And I guess that's okay. And then they're going to be like, oh, well, but they didn't have Michael Pratt in that game. And they're just not good. Like, I think there's a theory of rankings, which I sometimes subscribe to and I sometimes don't, which is that say you theoretically Georgia for this year, right? Like they won last year undefeated, or whatever team you had last year should be your number one team until they lose another game. Which I guess an extension of that would be your number one G5 team from last year should remain your number one G5 team, but they actually did lose, but then they should only move if they lost to their G5 team. I guess that's a slight extension of that, which is my assumption of what they're doing, because that's my guess is what they're doing, and they're doing that and probably mixing in some ESPN FPI into that too. But that doesn't make sense, and that's not an actual. It's not an actual solution to this problem.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like the ranking that they currently have is absolutely egregious. Liberty should be a top 10-ish team. You don't want to rank them 8. Okay, that's fine. I can see that. They should be top 20, not more than top 25. They should be top, like, you want to put them 15th, fine. I'm okay with that. But Liberty has earned a ranking, and if they're not ranked this week, if they're still ahead of Tulane, but again, they don't know what they're doing here, right? Like,
Yeah.
the criteria they use are designed to be as least controversial as possible to the fan bases, right? Like, imagine
Yeah.
if you beat a team and they're like, well, actually, advanced metrics said the other team should win, so we're going to put them in ahead of you. Like, there would be outcry, right? So they have to base it off of wins. They have to base it off of strength of schedule. Even strength of schedule is controversial because people are like, well, when we scheduled that team, it was good. It's like, well, that's not how any of this works. But again, like, and the thing is, the alternative would be, okay, fine, we just have the bookmakers decide the top 4, which, like, that's not
Yeah.
horrible. Like, I mean, like, but then at the time there's going to be outcry because it's like, well, gambling. It's like, well, okay, but like, right? Like, could you imagine the outcry if it was like, yeah, just have the bookmakers decide the top 4, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you're ignoring wins and losses, which you have to really incorporate, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, top Apex, you know, Bo Nix goes from out of the top 10 to number 5. That's going to happen. Not to give away too much of the secret sauce here, but when your first two passes are completed for a combined 150 yards, that's going to vault your Apex ranking considerably. He did slow down after that, but it's not like he was stopped or even close. Other than that, just names we've seen before for the most part. Yeah. Anything new on this other than Bo Nix just absolutely just had a crazy first half?
I think, remember back, I can't remember if it was the week before or the week after when the model had like, I think it was like USC versus Stanford and it had them winning like 100-9 or something.
Yes.
And like, I feel like if you projected what Bo Nix did the first 2 passes out, that would have been the, like, I mean, obviously it didn't happen. He
Yeah.
slowed down, but like, you project that out, it'd be like, yeah, every pass is like a 40-yard touchdown. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what I thought of there. But yeah, no, it's interesting. And again, this is a pretty good proxy for Heisman, except, and like, again, it's so funny for Jaden Daniels because people are like, oh my god, Jaden after the game in this Florida, like, he's so good. It's like, yeah, but also Florida's defense is bad, and also their defense is really bad too. Like, Graham Mertz threw for 300 yards. That also shouldn't happen. So yeah, like it's not really a bad. It's not really like Graham Mertz isn't bad. It's just you shouldn't let him pass for 300 yards. That shouldn't happen, but it did. So, like, I don't know. The thing is, you have to do this 2 ways, right? You can either say that the team, you can either say team strength matters for Heisman voting or it doesn't matter, right? And if it matters, then LSU should be eliminated already because of how bad their defense is. But then if it does matter, then okay, yeah, Oregon makes sense. But then also you can't justify Jaden Daniels being there because then if team strength doesn't matter, then he should win, and then Bo Nix shouldn't even be considered theoretically, right? So
Yeah.
like they try to have it both ways, where it's like, well, sometimes team strength matters, but also times it doesn't matter. It's like you can't have it like you either completely strip out how well a team's doing and like random quarterbacks from the MAC become Heisman candidates, or you incorporate team strength, right? You can't have it both ways.
Yeah. And I think the narrative just kind of is fluid from year to year based about who's kind of getting the most media, I'm going to say attention, but like case as much as anything else.
Like, again, in terms of Apex here, right? Like Caden Salter, he's not considered because they're going to say, well, he did that against nobodies. Okay, that's fine. But then if that's the case, then you can't say, well, Jaden Daniels, because then you could say Jaden Daniels did that against some bad SEC teams as well, right? And then, like, if you're and you got to make the same case against Oregon, right? Like, Oregon played Stanford, so you can't make this argument that, like, oh, well, it only matters sometimes when team strength only matters when we say it matters, right? If you're gonna do that, what you need to have is some stats people, and maybe not necessarily me, but you need to have some stats people sit down and say, here is a universal adjustment ranking system. where you can say
Yeah.
a yard against this team is equal to you create some standard yard, maybe a euro, maybe you make functionally the euro of yards, and then you compare everybody to that euro, and then you say, oh, a yard against Oregon is worth 1.2 yards or something, or a yard
Mm-hmm.
against someone. Like, you do that, and then all these problems go away, because then we can standardize everything, and then everything is good. But if until you do that, then random people like Caden Salter and all these other guys are going to be left off of rankings, because it's like, well, they did it against no one. It's like, well, you have to quantify no one. Like, just because it's no one doesn't mean it was zero. It was still worth something.
Yeah, and I guess also to that point, okay, maybe he did it against lesser competition. He absolutely did. But if what he did is so easy, then let me see here. I don't see anybody else in the group of five that's on this list.
Mm-hmm.
So he's uniquely he is uniquely kicking ass in terms of what the G5 is doing. I'll put it that way. All right, top player Ryan. No, nothing really. No big movement here except Troy Franklin went up again, obviously, since he completely blowtorched the USC passing defense. Other than that, nothing really new here. Ricky White up to number 4. We talked about UNLV in part 1. Anything on this?
No, but I will say that it's interesting that Marvin Harrison Jr. keeps creeping up that list as Cord has gotten better and better each week. So
Yeah, and also that Washington still has 2 guys in the top 7 at this late in the season. That's just nuts. That's just freaking crazy.
mm-hmm.
Top team Ryan, James Madison sneaks into the top 10. Again, this is what happens when you play Connecticut, who has kind of stopped playing. And like I talked about in part 1, Jordan McLeod had an apex of over 200 in that game. So that makes sense. Otherwise, it's the same old suspects in this group.
Yeah.
All right. Top running offenses, a couple of new entrants here. Hey, guess what, Andy Avalos? Sorry you lost your job, but at least your team ran into BuckMetrics top 10 for running offenses. Congratulations on that. And then Auburn just took, they put it to Arkansas. I didn't see that coming. I didn't play that, but I was really questioning that line last week. But very glad I did not play that.
Mm-hmm.
Air Force down to number 3 also. That's interesting, and considering that crap burger that they laid in Hawaii last week, as we talked about in part 1.
Yeah, they're still up there. Interesting, New Mexico State. They are like a sneakily good team, like a sneakily really good team, and they actually play Auburn this week. And I am sure we're talking about that in just a few minutes, so we will stop talking about that.
All right, the bum lists. This is disappointing. I accurately predicted that 2 weeks ago Daniel Richardson would probably play his way off the bum list, and he did. And then he promptly played it back on as FAU lost to, I can't even remember, but they had a really, really poor showing. One new name here, Trexler Ivy. That's a completely new name to me. The Charlotte quarterback. Cam Fancher. I was pretty unkind to this young man. In the preview of the Sun Belt, and Marshall's offense dropped in. Marshall's offense has been so poor that this guy dropped into the top 10 of the bum list. Now, what's interesting, I don't know if you watched that game because you're as sick as I am. Actually, you should have, because you had Georgia Southern. That was one of your plays last week.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had a different quarterback, and I don't know if Fancher got hurt or if he actually just finally lost the job. But it's Chad Pennington's son, who also went to Marshall, was playing at quarterback. So that might disrupt things a little bit. That was interesting. He seemed to be pretty okay, at least. I was making, what was I making? I was making dinner for my wife. It was something that was very involved. Can't remember, but it was a very involved dish. So I kind of just had only one eye on the game. Couldn't really watch it too much. And then, from a Team Ryan ranking standpoint, Army drops into the bottom 10. No big deal. That kind of fits their style. Rutgers at number 9 did nothing to disabuse us of their belonging in the bottom 10 too. That was a rough show against Iowa.
Yeah.
All right. Defensive team apex. Iowa State jumps into the top 10. Otherwise, like I said, Rutgers, they They are good, as I was mentioning, was talking about Kyle McCord. Northern Illinois stays in the top 10. I really don't get that, but they've been there all season. I'm not going to, it's kind of late in the season to argue with that. Otherwise, nothing really newsworthy here for you.
No, nothing. Interesting to see Northern Illinois that high because they have just done nothing the last 2 weeks at all.
Yeah. No, they really haven't. I don't, really weird team. All right, top run defenses. Troy jumps into the top 10. I think they've just about got the West wrapped up in the Sun Belt. Other than that, the one thing that sticks out to me, it's going to be interesting. UCLA's top 10 run defense. Now, USC is not a top 10 running offense because they actually pass the ball like 54% of the time. I think the college average is about 51. So USC, it'll USC is a very good running defense. It'll be interesting to see them against UCLA's rushing defense. On the other side of the ball too, it'll be interesting to see what on earth Chip Kelly's trying to do against my deeper dive. Let's just stay tuned for that in a second here.
Yeah.
But otherwise, nothing really earth shattering on this one for me. All right. Ready to talk about some games now. Since we're doing it on a Monday night, these might have moved since our graphics department and all the interns did their work late last night. So BC at Pitt, and a total of 47. Pitt's giving 1.5. I didn't have a chance to look. Did Thomas Castellanos get hurt? That's the only way I can see that Pitt's being favored in this game. And with a total of 47.
Let me check. You can move on to we could go. Okay, 1 second. Let me see here. I also don't. I know there was people betting on Pitt last week.
I don't see anything.
No, I'm not seeing anything either.
That doesn't make any sense at all. What am I missing here?
There were a lot of people that bet on Pitt late last week and Pitt lost. So maybe there's some people who believe in Pitt. I guess I don't know.
I don't get either. I mean, okay, maybe it's a defensive oriented game. Pitt's defense is not horrible, but this doesn't make sense to me. There's got to be some kind of injury I'm not seeing. And again, I'm not a huge BC homer. I thought Jeff Hafley would be gone by now after he lost to Northern Illinois and he barely beat Holy Cross. So interesting.
I grabbed BC plus 2.5 in the money line, and I guess it's I'm not sure if it's minus. Is it Pitt -1 now, or is it Pitt? I don't know. I got closing line value somewhere. I'm not sure which way.
This was done last night, so this might have moved since. So, let me just see if I ever got it. Pitt by 2.5 now. That it doesn't make even less sense. I don't get it, but a lot of things I don't get. Okay. Colorado at Washington State. I just see this, and my thought is, man, Washington State, they were such a good defensive team last season, and I think they missed Brian Ward, who's now the defensive coordinator at Arizona State. I just, when I see a total of 64, Colorado's got a nice passing game, but it just really kind of struck me that, this is why Arizona State is so good. They have the guy that would have, had this number at 49 last season. They really missed that guy. I actually have them as the third worst defense in the Pac-12 right now, Washington State.
Yeah, I have this as pretty high scoring. I've got this at 69, so I have maybe a little bit of value there on the over. This is a Friday night game, 10:30 Friday night, so I'm pretty excited for this one for a couple of reasons. So Colorado, although they did lose last week, they did cover the spread, which was good, but I'm still sad they lost, mostly because I had Colorado at 3-1 to win the game, but also my preseason Colorado over 4.5 bet. They are only at 4. So if and when Colorado wins the next game, I get to cash a nice juicy little preseason favorite there, a nice little 2-1 preseason bet. So come on, guys. You got 2 games left. You got one. Come on. You want to make a bowl, you got to win this game. And actually, like, getting into a bowl game is weirdly possible for Colorado. They got Washington State, and I think they have
Utah.
someone else who's winnable, I think. Another game
They
that's
can beat
winnable
Utah.
next week, I think. Yeah, they
Utah.
can beat Utah.
Utah's offense stinks.
Yeah, so like
I don't believe in them at all.
we could see the Leon show continuing here in a bowl game. So I'm pretty excited for that. So come on, guys, you got this. I believe in you. I believe in you early. I believe in you now. Come on, who else bet you against TCU? No one else did that. Come on, I got you. Come on.
That's very true. Yes. Yeah. Good luck with that. The next one, kind of the message has since been received, as this was done kind of earlier on Sunday, and since then Zach Arnett was left. The whole takeaway is, my gosh, you're only favored by 13.5 against a really bad Southern Miss team. What is going wrong with your program? And the athletic director said, yeah, it's not in the right direction. Let's go ahead and let this gentleman go. So Zach Arnett has been let go. Hopefully he is in my time zone next year, running the defense at the Coliseum for the USC Trojans.
Who even is the interim? Because right now I'm seeing Southern Miss plus 14, and I actually have Southern Miss as favorite in this game.
I didn't even see that. Jesus. I don't even know who it is. I don't know anybody else on the staff. I really don't. That's kind of one of the problems that we have.
So then is it the play Southern Miss?
Good luck with that. Let me see. Well, I will say that, let's go back here for a second. Yeah, remember I mentioned that Will Hall stopped calling the plays and they started to improve? Mm-hmm. And the Billy Hiles, I think is his name. He's no longer on the bum list. He's played his way off. So maybe, I don't know. I can't join you, but that's not, believe me. I will not talk you out of that. That's a pretty sound play, I think. Interesting.
I don't think the problem, like, okay, yeah, you fired the coach, and yeah, you needed to. I don't think he was the problem. I think there's other far deeper problems. One of which is that Mike Leach is no longer the coach of Mississippi State. Yeah. I think that's the fundamentally biggest problem. And I kind of feel like now, obviously, of course, Mike Leach, one of the best and most fun coaches to ever do it, and unfortunately he passed away. But my kind of takeaway from this is he left them a bunch of pieces that they don't know what to do with. And he knew how to make them all work, but they didn't know how to make it all work.
Well, here's my problem with this is, they went to a totally different offense. Remember, just Rodgers was just horrible. He just was struggling in this new offense to start the season, and clearly I don't think he got much better. But if you're going to let your coach totally redo the offense, I don't see how that lines up with being so anxious to fire him and let him go. It doesn't make sense. You've just basically not just lost a year, you've really set your program back considerably, because now is the next guy to start over again. It's that serial start over where you really start to just see a cumulative effect, and by next year, now maybe the portal makes this a little different, but that's when you see the cumulative effect just really just kill your roster. So this could be a really bad situation. I don't know who they're going to get. I haven't heard any names just because there's other bigger jobs that are available. All right. Tulane only given 9.5 at FAU, and we've kind of beat up Tulane quite a bit, and I think this kind of proves for good reason. If you're the best G5 team, you should not be giving less than double digits to a extremely struggling and super erratic Florida Atlantic team. I guess I'll just keep it at that. Now, maybe
with a QB on the bum list too.
Yeah, back on the bum list, hot on.
Yeah,
breaking news.
It's concerning, to say the least. And again, this hasn't been updated yet, but this had better not be the top ranked G5 team tomorrow. If it is, I'm going to post about this on Twitter. Like, I actually will be upset about this. But anyways, yeah, I have, for the second straight week, I have the spread right on what it is. So I see no play here, which makes me sad because I would love to hit FAU, but also FAU is bad too. So, I don't know. There will come a time to bet against Tulane, probably very soon. I have no idea who their rival is. I know they're the Green Wave. Maybe their rival is global warming. I don't know. But no, who is their rival anyway? Who is
I
there?
don't know. Just half these Conference USA or these American, it's all made up.
Yeah.
Um, let me just see here.
If
The
not, they'll be playing in. I think they're playing in the conference championship game, so we could fade them then.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, they play UTSA next week, who I believe is undefeated in American play. Is that right?
Ah, there you
Uh,
go.
yeah, that might be where it ends. Interesting. Yeah, the Americans got an interesting thing. They have three teams that are still undefeated right now: Tulane, SMU, and UTSA. Now, Tulane and UTSA play each other. Um, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
This is now the problem when you don't do divisions.
Yeah.
See, there's problems with divisions and there's problems without divisions. One of the problems without division is that sometimes you're eliminated just because you lost that one game,
Yep.
right? Now, now next year for the Power Five conferences, it won't matter because say there's a Power Five conference
Yeah.
and it was like Penn State played Michigan and then Michigan played Ohio State, and then like Ohio State played, yeah, like say it worked that way, and say that Michigan beat Penn State, lost to Ohio State, and then Ohio State beat Michigan, then people would say, oh, well, it's because Michigan beat Penn State, then Penn State got eliminated from that game, and that sucks for them. But next year that won't matter because then Penn State's going to the college football playoff anyway, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But
Just yeah.
it's for these lower conferences that is unfortunate, and it's there is worse there's more egregious of examples of it last year when Alabama like got excluded because they lost that one game. Like it happens at the divisional level too, but it's when you get when you get those non-conference divisional like non-divisional conferences, and you sometimes lose one game and you're like, that's it, I'm eliminated because everybody else was good too. So
Yeah. Yeah, agree. All right. This next one, and the thing is, my model has this exactly right on. It's got Louisville by 1.5. I just, I, I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, Louisville's like legitimately good, and Miami has some legitimately good performances that were like a month ago that are in this number. You interestingly actually have Louisville by 4 here,
4.
and you actually have Emory Williams at Miami's quarterback, and I didn't see anything official, but I don't think he's playing again the rest of the year. Apparently, he had a really gruesome injury. Like when they showed a replay, ESPN wouldn't show a replay of it, but when they showed it in the stadium at Doak Walker, it just the noise of the crowd was just gruesome. Like it was as if they'd just seen a
Yeah.
murder. It was awful. So I think that I can't I don't know. Am I missing something here again? I don't know.
I
Is
so what
Jack Plummer
you've
hurt?
got
I hate to make this like
no, I
is the
don't.
quarterback hurt, but I gave myself a mini Narduzzi in part one, and so we just kind of got to make sure here that's the only thing I can think of that I'm missing. I mean, these two teams are just you know I mean, Louisville's just better. Their defense has been in the top 20 for a while. Miami's not. All right, Plummer was questionable for. No, that was last year. So there's nothing. Yeah, if you Google Jack Plummer injury, you're getting stuff from last year when he was at Cal.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't get
this
this.
is early Saturday, right? I like the thing is Louisville almost lost to Virginia as a 20 something point favorite. That's pretty crazy. On the other hand, Miami almost upset Florida State. That's also pretty crazy. I I kind of just if like gun to my head, Louisville, but that's just because I could just get Louisville money line. Like I don't trust them to cover any spread. Like even the -1.5, I'm a little iffy on. Like I'm like they win by one. They're gonna win this game by 1 point somehow. Like it's like Louisville money line or that's it. And you can get that at -120, so that's acceptable. But like there's far better value I think this week than that. I'm just gonna let whatever happened in this game happen. Like I you got Mario Cristobal versus Brom,
Jeff Brom. Yeah.
who Jeff Brom. Like, so the thing is, I actually did have I had Louisville as a play. I did not touch it though, smartly because I was like, oh, Louisville should win this game by like multiple scores. But I've learned about I've learned about Jeff Brom from Isaiah, and
I was
like
gonna say, yeah.
the one game when they played NC State and they didn't cover that, and they basically gave me a push there. I learned it's like touching a hot stove. You're like, I'm never doing that again. Never doing that again. Like they should have beaten that NC State team by like 1,000,000,000, and they were just like, nope, we're gonna win by 3. And I'm like, that's it. I'm not trusting you guys against bad teams ever again. And sure enough, just like 20-point favorites against a horrible Virginia team. With Caldera too. They brought back Anthony Caldera.
Yeah.
Tony Muskett
Yep.
has been benched, or it's reloaded. I guess.
Who even? I don't even. There's no explaining that. I don't.
No, but
I
yeah,
don't
no.
know.
It's
Louisville has something to play for here too. I mean, they actually, as a one-loss team, they think that they might have a path to the playoff. Question mark. I can't talk them out of it. I mean, Miami. I don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
Enough about
if
that.
I was on the committee, you lose to Pitt, you're eliminated. That's how that works. You lost to Pitt. It was some massive favorite too. It wasn't like a close game, or no. What was the spread? I don't even know what the spread in the game. Wasn't it weirdly close and then they lost? It was like 7, and it was like, that's weird, and they lose. But yeah, no. Yeah. Okay, fine. Maybe you've convinced me a little bit to play Louisville in the money line, but like that's it. I am laying no numbers with this team at all. That's not happening.
Yeah. All right. The next one I just bring up, Louisiana Tech. My gosh, they are staring, unfortunately, at as now 8.5-point dogs to Jacksonville State, being swept by the 2 new entrants into Conference USA. Not exactly what you wanted when you were looking at how the season was going to go. That's rough.
LA Tech somehow losing to Sam Houston State. It's weird. My model actually had that spread exactly as it is, so I didn't touch it. And I wanted to bet Sam Houston State. I just kind of forgot. / was like, yeah, there's better, but they won that game, so shout out to them. Sam Houston State, it's too late. It's far too late. Way, way too late. But they're kind of figuring out some things. I mean, okay, they beat an FCS team by 3 when they were 16-point favorites, so that's not great. But I guess it's a rival of some kind. So, okay. But, then you take down Louisiana Tech, which is not the biggest of accomplishments by any means. But it's something. Hey, it's a FBS win. And, yeah, again, I'm not sure if I'm going to say it this week, but, I have actually already bet on Sam Houston this week.
Really? Wow.
They're getting 13 points against... Is it Western Kentucky? No, I don't think it's Western Kentucky. It's someone. Yeah, it's Western Kentucky, and I've actually gotten closing line value already, which is the most scariest thing you could say this college football season.
Yeah, exactly. I like your chances until then.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's only a half-point closing line value, so we're still alive.
Okay.
But yeah, it's yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
So.
Interesting. Okay. This one, even worse. So App State at JMU, App State's had a nice little resurgence against some crummy teams here. As of late, I just see JMU as just much, much better. Now, this line has actually gone down to 10.5, which really puzzles me. I don't get this at all. Now we're just gonna have to be like this is the quarterback injury hour here. Let's make sure. No. No. If you do injury, it goes back to Arizona. So Jordan McLeod's okay. I don't get this. I mean, App State. All right, nice little 2-game run. Awesome for you guys. I mean, it's not even close here. And it's not like this is, that weird road trip to Boone, North Carolina. This is at JMU. What do you have here?
Yeah, I've got. I do have James Madison favored, but not by a ton. So that's a bit odd. But I'll look into that. I think there is a bit of a bug here with their quarterback, so I'm going to clean that up. But yeah, it's interesting. App State, they absolutely destroyed Georgia State last week. Did not expect that at all. The spread was 1, and they just annihilated them. It was Georgia State -1, and App State crushed them the same way that UCF destroyed Oklahoma State. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting to me that this spread is this close, but I think I'd still say JMU there, though.
Yeah. Okay. What about this next one? We had a good 10 minutes on the airport, the airline. What is it? The airplane graveyard.
Airplane graveyard, yeah.
Yeah, this has moved a little bit now to 3, but I just and again, I really don't like to react to just one game, but you've got two just inexplicably bad Air Force games, and then you've got a UNLV team that's been really, really good. I think we're past the part where we just say it's fluky. I just don't get this line. Now let me see if my I don't know. My Air Force was so good before whatever happened to them. I mean, my model really likes Air Force here, but I just by my eyes, and I hate to be eyeball test guy. Just UNLV just looks like the better team to me. What about
Yeah,
you?
I I agree with that. I think I've already bet UNLV here, so
Mm-hmm.
I
All
got
right.
4.5, 4.5 or 4. I got something like that. So
All right. Marshall at South Alabama. I think this is up to 10.5 now. Um, yeah, which makes more sense. I can't see, and that basically is enough to barely keep it not being a play. I have South Alabama by 16, so it's not enough margin to bet. Your model, I have a note here, love South Alabama here. This doesn't make sense, and I don't know if the market's still short to catch up to just how fraudulent Marshall is or not. Good margin for you though. I mean, 8 points is or no, Jesus, you've got it by 19, so you've got like a 10.5 point margin here. Would you
yeah,
bet this one?
I
Yeah.
maybe. Let me see here. Yeah, I've got 18. I'd consider it, but Marshall did kind of hurt me last week. So I don't know if I'm eager to try it again, but I'll think about it though.
All right. Kansas State at Kansas. I I know it's a rivalry game, and I don't want to say hey, just disregard any Lance Leipold team, but Kansas is down to their third quarterback now. Doesn't this line seem? Is this just that this is the theme of the Big 12 this season? It's just like another stink line.
Yeah,
Shouldn't Kansas State be like at least double digits here?
it's iffy. I'm kind of done with Kansas this year. It's just I've been hurt too much. They should have beaten Texas Tech. Like, I mean, okay, I get that the spread was
Yeah.
short, but then you lose your quarterback, and it's like whatever that happens. But it's just like I can't. I can't any like next year we'll come back and I'll be on this team at some point. But that was just not this year.
Yeah,
I'm
that was a
okay.
rough one.
Yeah, I'm
And
okay with them for this year.
I didn't even. Yeah, I mean, I have a Kansas football T-shirt on. I mean, I cashed on them when they hit their seventh win
Yeah.
because I was so upset at that stupidly low win total. And they've done this with their backup quarterback. I mean, what if they had Jalen
Hmm.
Daniels all season? They could have been 10-2
Yeah.
quite easily. Yeah, this I don't know. This looks short to me, considering that Kansas is down to QB3. The next one, actually, that line is flipped now. Oregon State is actually giving one, I think, when I checked last this morning, which makes sense. I've got, talked about this a little bit earlier. I've got Oregon State by 4, so not enough to play. This is just interesting to me. I think that it's weird. Is Oregon State the sharp guy play here?
Oh yeah, like a
You've
thousand
got them by
percent.
6. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
seems like there's so much. How do I say this? This seems like the classic. You're just going to take money from sharps versus the public. I think Washington is so much a public team in this one. I don't know any public square that's going to say, yeah, the Beavers are the play here. It just
No,
doesn't compute.
they're gonna be like, oh man, you're giving Michael Penix points. It's like no.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Um,
that's what the public says. They're like, oh man, you're giving Michael Penix points. He's gonna throw for like 500 yards. We're like, no, 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 it's Oregon State.
yeah, interesting. So we agree on that. I'm not going to play it, but it just um, actually I had this as a wrong team favored play for a little bit until the line swung to Oregon State last night.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this one too again a little bit earlier. This is another just Big 12 stink line. Um, Texas giving 8.5 to Iowa State. Just it. I mean, believe me, and you know, I was one of the earlier ones to say Iowa State's a lot better than people expect here. Now, having said that, it should be a lot more than 8.5, I think, and not going by my model, but just going by kind of if I was setting a line to book bets, I would set it a lot higher. I'll put it that way.
It's down to seven and a
It's
half.
Which, yeah, okay. Again, just like that, Oklahoma and Kansas. Like, again,
Yeah,
this is just a Big 12 thing for whatever reason.
and the
Um,
fact is, you
yeah,
can bet everything is on Texas. There is no way that the public is betting on. They're not like, actually, this game is in Iowa, is in Ames, Iowa. Like, no, they're all on Texas. And if you're sitting here and you're the books, and you're sitting here with a ton of money on Texas, and and you're like, yeah, actually, we're gonna take a point away. That's a giant red flag. The fact that this isn't 9.5 or like 13.5
yeah.
tells you everything you need to know. The books don't care. The books are like, yeah, fine, they're losing. We know they're gonna lose.
This opened at 9 as well, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of just to reframe your point, and in terms that my dumb brain will comprehend. Literally, it's like I guess they're scared of the sharp money here, and
yeah.
they'll take all. Yeah, um,
See,
because they've yeah,
that's the thing you have to think about when you, because the thing is, books know who they're going to. They design lines so they know who they're going to need, and they're okay with that, right? So
mm-hmm.
like they've been burned by Bama the last couple of weeks, but at the same time, like, and Bama is one of those public teams, but not nearly as public of a team as Texas. So like they know they're going to need whoever Texas is playing, and they're not going to be like, they're not like, okay, we'll just give money to other teams. Like again, when it was against BYU, it was like 20. The spread was like 19 or something. Like they know when they need certain teams, and they're like, if they're like, we know we're okay with needing Iowa to come within 7.5, then they're okay with that. Like again, I think this is gonna, like, could you imagine if this closes under 7? Like it's heading that way. If this
Yeah.
is Saturday and it's 6.5, just like everything on Iowa, everything in your account on Iowa. I'm not
Yeah.
even joking. Like, but
No,
like
no, no.
seriously,
It's yeah,
like it's like that's how bad. Like they know, they
yep,
know. They're like, this is, because even then, this was the game last year that Texas weirdly, it was like, I think Texas won this game by 2 last year. It's this weird game where it's weird things happen when you go to Iowa State. No one wants to play there. It's far away. Texas has been struggling. Iowa State actually looks good this year. Everything is there. The
yeah,
recipe is all the ingredients are there.
yeah. To your point, just another Big 12 game where, like, the more the line supposedly moves against you, the more you want to bet it.
Yep.
At least that's yeah. This we've seen that like 5 times now. All right, my deeper dive. Now if you saw like any of the first 5 minutes of the Oregon USC game, clearly that passing defense has some work to do. But this is interesting. I was just kind of curious if they were going to improve against the run, which made more sense. I'm not an X and O guy, but I'd seen just enough videos where basically you just had USC with these insanely stupid fronts, and there'd be like nobody for like 3 linemen to block. So of course teams are just getting way downfield before first contact, as we saw especially in the Washington game. So the adjustment, and again, I'm not an X and O guy, but my eye could see it, is that you didn't have a bunch of these crazy fronts. You had a lot more just your typical 4-man fronts with gap integrity for the most part. Now the other thing too is they made a point, and I don't know if this is out of respect for the feet of Bo Nix. They didn't seem to really put a premium on pressuring the quarterback as Alex Grinch did. They didn't sack him once. But what was interesting was, they seemed to really have Oregon's running game under control. Because honestly, if I'm looking at the players that I fear the most on that Oregon offense, it's Bucky Irvin and Troy Franklin. And so I just looked at this and I said, okay, well, what are the toughest games that Oregon has had rushing the ball this season? And so actually, Texas Tech. That was a road game. That was the toughest one this season. Then Cal, and this is actually their third worst on a yards per rush basis, which was interesting to me. So what I saw by my eyeballs actually seemed to be confirmed by the numbers here. Washington, that's whatever. But let's look. The defense that everybody's in love with every year, Utah. They were. Utah was basically 3/4 of a yard better per play, better against the run. And that, I believe, was a home game for Utah as well. Pretty interesting. So promising. Now, can we believe it? So I went and I said, okay, well, what does this look like versus other games this season? This is each opponent that USC has faced this season. Here is what they've done in their game against USC or yards per rush. And then here's what they did against all the other teams. And this is basically, a higher number is worse here by USC. This game against Oregon, they held Oregon 1.2 per yards per rush below their average. The next best game, there's one that was better than that, Nevada. I don't care. Great. You're better than Mountain West defenses. Not a great accomplishment. Move on. This was even better than that Notre Dame game, which was, what I thought was the best defensive game of the season. Now, that Notre Dame game was a false positive. But I'm thinking that this I can buy it. I kind of, my eyeballs and the metrics and just the logic all kind of line up here. I'm not going to say that USC's got an awesome run defense, but I think they're going to be good enough. At least they have one thing that the defense, I think, can be competent at now. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do against UCLA. UCLA's, as we've talked about a bit here, especially in part one, their passing game has gone to absolute crap. I don't know if I'm a UCLA fan, if I'm really comfortable with, whoever is UCLA's quarterback du jour, having to win this game. Their run offense, if they can just be kind of held in check here, which seems reasonable considering how much better Oregon's running game is than UCLA's. I think at the very least, UCLA is going to have I don't think they're going to score as much as people might think at first rush. I might put it that way. I think this, I don't even know what the total is, but this might be a good underplay too, just based on that. So, we had a false positive against Notre Dame, but this is just so much better, I think, than any other game against, best performance against the best offense that we've seen, especially running the ball. Washington doesn't even run the ball that well. So, kind of hard to just discount this. You skeptical, you kind of believing like me, you kind of plus believing.
On running, yeah, improvements. Passing,
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, to be fair, it's Oregon, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So it's hard you have to kind of squint a little bit. And after those first two plays, really squinting a bit. But there's a little bit of something there, I think.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah. And again, like literally, it's just if they can just find one thing they can do, you can make a game plan. I think defensively, if you have one thing that you can kind of say, okay, we can do this. Okay, don't have to be the best. And again, if their defense can slow down UCLA's, I think it's going to be a different dynamic being at home against UCLA than on the road at Oregon. That just it's kind of stupid to say out loud because it's so obvious unless you haven't thought about it. So. Just interesting. I just by far to my eyeball and by the metrics, their best run defense effort of the season. The other thing I do want to bring up is that at some point around here, they actually led the nation in tackles for loss and tackle for loss yardage. So these horrible numbers were actually a lot worse once you actually went to called running plays because you had a lot of sacks that were dragging these numbers down. And it's funny to say when you see such horrible numbers that they were dragged down, but they could have been just atrociously bad. Maybe is the way to put it best.
Mm-hmm. I will say that this is probably something more to look for next season, rather than this season. Because again, you do only have 2 more Caleb Williams games. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no way he's going to go to a bowl.
Uh, no, we have one more. They're off the last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. That's why they
That's
played
right.
week 0.
Okay, so that's it. So this is Caleb Williams' last game. Okay, then yeah, I'm betting UCLA or USC there. Sorry, yeah, they're going to cover against UCLA, but yeah, that's it. He won't be playing the bowl. And this is something to look for next year. And again, I think the biggest thing for USC's bowl game is because would the Caleb Williams replacement be next year? Would that be who gets the start in the game?
It's interesting. So Miller Moss has much more experience, but he's not your Riley quarterback. He's not really a mobile guy. Malachi Nelson is a guy that Riley recruited to Oklahoma, and he committed. Then he came over with Riley to USC, or I guess he recommitted to USC from after decommitting from Oklahoma. He's much more of a Riley guy now. It was his first year. He might take some time. Looking at Riley's track record at Oklahoma, he typically likes to use these upperclassmen. I did that analysis showing how much better his numbers are with upperclassmen. So I don't know. I guess Moss would get the nod right now, but I wouldn't consider him to be the more likely starter next year, if that makes sense.
I think, but I don't think this situation particularly has happened with Oklahoma that much before. I think most of the time they have been in a competitive game late in the season.
Yeah.
So I would say,
yeah.
And like the thing is, the basically star NFL players opting out of the bowl game, that's only been a relatively recent development. That's only been the last kind of 2-3 years. I don't think Kyler Murray or Baker opted out of the bowl. So that's going to be an interesting thing. I'd love to see the young kids start. I feel like that's the right play, just to see what he has, give him some game experience. Depends who your opponent is as well, too. But yeah, like this is the last Caleb Williams game, so buckle up for that. But yeah, it's going to be. The thing is, I actually do. I want to see USC succeed, right? Like, I guess we're kind of rivals in that case, but like. Lincoln Riley is like, when you see USC, they do some of the most fun things in the game, right? I'd love to see them score 50 against Iowa or some Big Ten teams next year, right? And also stop them from scoring 50. I'd like to see them beat Iowa or Minnesota 50-10, right? That'd be great. Like, I want to see USC succeed. I want to see and in Oregon, USC was a pretty good game, but it would have been even better if USC had a good defense too. Then that game would have been then it would have been like Oregon minus 2.5 or something, and then this game goes to overtime, and we get even more football, right? So I'm not I'd love to see USC's defense improve, and I think it's looking a little bit that way. You get a better defensive coordinator, you get some transfer kids. I think this team will be well equipped for the Big Ten next year.
I think so. I will say that they had a guy. He was Mike Bone, the former athletic director. His chief of staff was a guy named Brandon Sosna. I don't know if we talked about him. He's actually in the front office of the Lions now. He's just a brilliant kid. He actually, he was with Bone for a long time. And I think when they were at Cincinnati, and Lincoln Riley was the offensive coordinator at East Carolina, they actually had at that point in time, they had Riley as a potential candidate to be a head coach should they have a position open up. So they're just, they're very just, Sosna's really sharp in terms of metrics and analytics. And I would have loved to have him around now just to make a case for a guy like John Rudzitsky, like I've done a couple times on this one. So anyways, okay. Buck with a B, the bookie. Take a screen grab if you want to see the rules here. I'm not imagining you have any plays at this point. I've taken the liberty of lining out the
crossing off
ones
the
that are,
dead ones.
yeah,
One
yes,
more, one more this week. Texas under 9.5. They'd have to lose this week to keep that alive. If not, that's over. Other than that, I mean, with the exception of Air Force, I mean, a lot of these are going to be 2 weeks from now, and I'm not in bad shape. I think no one has won yet. I don't think. So I've lost a couple of plays, but those were pretty small dollar plays comparatively, and we've got a lot of bigger ones like um, so the big one is obviously the game, like Ohio State there. That one is gonna
yep.
um, so
That's got
I
three
can
here. It's got your college football
Ohio
champs
State
and your
CFB, Ohio State Big Ten, and Michigan not to make
Mission
CFB. That's
Knots. Yep.
all hinging on one game. So yeah, that's and now the nice thing is though, Harbaugh will not be on the sidelines in that game. Now he might be in a bleacher seat somewhere with a pair of binoculars. I don't know, or in a hotel room somewhere. I don't know either. But yeah, so we'll see. Florida State to make CFP. That's definitely in play as well. But they look not great against Miami. I think I'm kind of done. Again, once you get this late into the season, your plays are kind of done.
Yeah.
There's no real value on the Heisman anymore. Um, yeah, so
Okay. All right. So last week, not an awesome week. I will say, I did. My model had two more totals hit, both unders, a very different
mm-hmm.
numbers, 68 and 28. That brings the model totals to 17 and 9 on the year, 31% ROI. Man, good again, a good season for the model and the totals.
Yeah.
Composite ROI of 10.8%, which is great. That's, I think pros would pretty much take that.
Oh
Let's
no,
go here.
no, wait, go back for a sec.
Yeah,
Colorado won, or they covered the spread.
right. I will fix that. Okay.
There we go. Go
Sorry
get that
about
stat
that.
correction to my bookie there.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, Washington -8. No words. That should
Yeah.
be there should be a green dollar sign beside that one.
Well,
Um,
but then that, yeah, not, this was extremely lucky too. Like we said, I mean,
I mean, I
taking the
think they
knee on
just
the
kind of
5 yard
want to
line.
end. They just kind of want to end the game too, though. But yeah, I know it's
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah,
And the Kansas with, down to QB3, that just
yeah.
sucks.
And
And
then
the
we
fact
didn't
that it
realize
happened,
that,
yeah,
and
well,
the
and it
ULL
happened
too.
during the game,
Mhm.
well, yeah, that was just stupid on my part. And I took it on that. I took responsibility for that. I want to say this about the Kansas game too. I kind of learned about 21 years ago now it was, because I remember it was in the 2002 season. The time that an injury sucks is the game in which it happens. Every injury can be tough, but if you have a week to game plan around it, oh, fine, good. You at least have a strategy around it. I don't think Lance Leipold, who is an awesome coach, spent hours and hours of last week saying, "Hey, when we get this Ballard kid, I don't even remember his first name is. When Ballard is our quarterback this week, against Texas Tech, here's what we're going to do." And he had to play literally almost the whole game because Bean was hurt really early. Just it's literally as bad as you can get. So that's a rough one. They should have, yeah, tough one for my Hawks. So
Mhm.
all right, these the upsets. Uh, yeah, this did not go the way that I think I kind of talked you into this one, and then I actually went up betting Coastal Carolina on that. You've got a couple here. You've been talking about this one for a while. Again today. Haven't talked about this one, which looks a little optimistic at this point. FAU versus over Tulane. Don't know if we have that happening. Although Tulane's been, well, I don't know. They haven't been that
Mhm.
bad. They'll muck out a close one. I've been talking about this one for a while. This is the exhale game. If Utah coming off that huge road trip against Washington, they just had a gauntlet. Now they have the exhale. Now it's not going to be the exhale game I thought, because Arizona is actually ranked and squarely on the radar. But I think Arizona is just a better team. And then our guests, actually, three of our guests picked upsets this week too. South Florida over UTSA. Really like Brandon, but I'm not buying Oklahoma losing to BYU.
Yeah.
That seems a little far fetched. This turned out to be a great call by Mark Shipper. Oregon
Yeah.
State over Washington. That seemed just absurd at the time, at least to me. And points for him right away
It's
for
close
getting,
and
as you said, yeah,
yeah.
closing line
Closing
value.
as a favorite, yeah. I mean it's fascinating when you look at some of these, right? Like especially on some of mine, like Tennessee over Bama, that closed a lot closer than people thought it was going to be. That was like a 9. LSU, that was over a 7 preseason. That was close to 3. Texas State closes the favorite against Coastal. Like
Yeah,
all these upsets that I said that I called, like they all became like a lot more likely, but then they just haven't gone. Now we have other ones this week too, and we'll see. But it's just like, yeah. And again, same thing this week. Where like preseason, what would the spread Iowa State versus Texas have been, like 22 something? Now
yeah.
it's like 7. So
Well, and to that point, like Coastal Carolina before the season. I mean, let's not forget Texas State was just hopeless. That had to
yeah.
be at least 2 touchdowns before the season, at least, right?
Mm-hmm. And then
I
they
mean, it's kind
closed
of hard
at
to.
least probably closer to 3, and then they closed favorites, and then they lose.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
All right, this is a new one too. And I don't know, if, just
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, don't want to get into this too much detail now, but I compiled all of our preseason picks for each conference championship game. We can get into this in a little more detail next week. We kind of, I don't know, it's interesting. CFF guys, surprisingly, just nailed the Americans so far. Looks like that's a very nice outcome. None of us did really that well in the Big 12. We'll see. This is interesting. We might both have picked one half, the
Yeah.
unlikely half of the Conference USA. Yeah, I don't know. We can get that little more on that next week. Although I don't know. I don't see Boise and Colorado State happening.
No,
Although
that's not
UNLV's kind of
happening.
ruined that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
But
know.
I called Oregon. You called Washington.
Yes.
Uh, everybody had UGA. Brandon Moore had Bama, so that he beat us there. We
Yeah.
had LSU, and like it could have maybe happened. ACC, we all like Clemson. That was a mistake.
Yeah.
I kind of like you had Florida State, and CFF guys had Florida State as well. I feel like I get like partial credit for Duke, um,
Yeah.
but I mean like okay, obviously Florida State, but like if there wasn't the injury to Riley, Duke would have made the conference. Like they would have made it. So on the right
Possibly.
track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
honestly, the Big
hopes
12 is still completely open yet. We have no
that
idea. So
is. It totally is. Yeah. Anything can happen. Although Kansas is out, so
yeah.
yeah, I like that though. That was gutsy. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And like I said to start part 2 here, really scary not just how many plays, but I guess comforting that our model has so many or both models have so many of these. I'm actually not playing Northern Illinois. I don't trust it. And the fact that your model has a completely different. I did already look up to save us another quarterback injury search. I don't see an injury for Rocky Lombardi. I don't know. Northern Illinois, the numbers don't make sense. To your point, they stunk the last 2 weeks, and your model's picking it up, so I'm not playing that. Our models both like Miami, Ohio by more than a touchdown here. I'm curious if you're tempted on this. I did because I'm not going to argue with a dual model play. You gonna grab Maryland here? You don't look too excited to.
No, I don't. I just I've been burned by Maryland a couple
Yeah.
times now. I think at some point the no Jim Harbaugh starts digging in a little bit. I also think this is the look ahead of all look aheads for Michigan because Ohio State's next week. I think if like the fact that there's no Harbaugh on the sideline is going to start, it's going to have an impact. I just like Maryland beat Nebraska by 3. Probably should have lost that game. I they've looked bad.
Yeah, they
But
have.
it's ugly, right? And that's the thing. It's like maybe a small spread play, but that's it.
Okay. We both have this one going under pretty easily. Rutgers at Penn State. Now, the one thing that could be a little bit of a concern is Penn State did fire Mike Yurcich, the offensive coordinator. Who knows? I don't know if a new OC can turn around things in 1 week. We saw it definitely happen to Arkansas. Um, it's I don't know. And maybe they do turn it around, but based on Rutgers' performance at Iowa, I don't think Rutgers really threatened to score at any point in time in that game at all. Plus, it can't be fun doing back-to-back road games at Iowa and Penn State. My God, those are literally the two best defenses in the country by metrics. So maybe Penn State just makes this a moot point just by shutting out Rutgers. I'm definitely gonna grab this when I get totals.
Yeah, I think
You know,
that's I like. Yeah, well, I mean, combined model unders are pretty good for us. So
yeah, your model is actually lower than me on this one. Your model loves Coastal Carolina at Army. Mine likes it. I think I've grabbed this one already. The only thing you've said that your model is it timed or not? I don't know. I guess my question is, well, it's only 5.5 points, so it's less than a 1-score game.
it doesn't fully take into account timing. No,
Okay, but again, it's not like we're spotting 12 or anything here. I mean,
no. So I think a score is fine. Like if it was 21, I'd be like, okay, maybe not. But like if it's like, yeah, like 5 a score, like they would win by a score. I just think Army is bad, and I think either they beat or lost to Holy Cross by like 3. So that's not a good sign.
okay, yeah, very true. I forgot about that.
Because our models don't
I
have FBS or FCS games. So
Yeah. What? No, did I screw this up? What do you have? Temple at UAB.
uh,
You've got it at 15
I
point
got
game.
Memphis minus 20. Oh no. Oh sorry, I think I have the wrong temple there. Ah. Oh, I've got UAB minus 14.
Yeah,
Yeah, or
minus
15.
14.
Yeah, 14,
15.
14.9.
Yeah. Okay.
14.9.
I know. All
So yeah,
right.
you
So
rounded up. That's fine.
yeah. So this, I guess, interesting. I guess I'll call this a dual model play because when I did this, you could get 7.5. I'll bold that. That is a dual model play. It's now at 8. So if you can get it at 7.5, great. If not, I think I got it at 8. Yeah, UAB is one of those teams that screwed up my model, though it's not too bad. I don't know if this is a good. Kind of want to say this would be a good spot for them, although they just lost to Navy 31-6. But yeah, I have played this. You gonna play this one? You think?
I think I'll play that one. Yeah. Also, just a quick note. I have Northern Illinois 8-point favorites against Northern Illinois, or no, against Western Michigan. So I
Against
actually
Western
have Northern.
8.
I have 8. So
Oh,
but still, it's still not a dual model play though. And
okay,
I think I've already bet Western Michigan. So
okay.
it's a mess. I can't. I think I've been burned 2 straight weeks by Northern Illinois, so I'm not touching the stove again.
Okay, I don't blame you. Did you even consider this one? I didn't see this one coming at all. We both have Tennessee winning now by
Oh,
less than a field goal.
of course
I
we
grabbed
do.
it. Um, I absolutely did. It doesn't sound like you're too excited to.
It would be the most Georgia
All right,
thing to
yeah, and
like
it's Tennessee
crush.
plus 10, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, it would be the most Georgia thing ever to like. Okay, we're gonna barely beat Missouri. Then we're gonna go crush Ole Miss. Then we're gonna like almost lose to Tennessee. The thing is, like, I know my model loves them, but like, I don't think Georgia's. I still don't think Georgia's that good. Like, they're good, but not like. I mean, I don't know. I think Bama wins, and I don't even know if we have. Do we have a line for Bama versus thing yet? I'm not sure. Do we have a? an SEC championship game line? I know
Yeah, I've seen
Bodog
three.
or FanDuel. Yeah,
Georgia's.
three. Georgia -3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd take Bama with Georgia -3 because I know FanDuel's putting out some championship game lines. I see 4. Ooh, that's tempting. Okay, we'll think about that. But anyways, yeah, I like. I'll think about that. I'm gonna debate it. Depends how early games go this week.
Okay. Yeah. No better logic than that. We'll see if I
Yeah,
really am I burdened or not. Yeah,
this
this
one.
is the one that yeah, and again, when I saw my model, I just thought, oh Jesus, something's wrong. And then your model comes on top and says, oh no, it's going to be closer than 2. It's going to be a 1-point game. Um, the battle of two top 10 rushing offenses.
Yeah. The thing is, I can't like this screams like we can't have this as a like. I think someone somewhere in a sports book is saying we can't make this within 2 scores or even 3 scores because I think then they're going to be like everybody's going to bet on Auburn, and if everybody bets on Auburn, then we're screwed. Also, would like to remind everybody, and that's what makes this even more um, juicy. Everybody knows who Auburn plays next week,
Mm-hmm.
and Hugh Freeze was hired in no small part for that game, for
Mm-hmm.
beat Bama, and that was the reason why he was hired because he's been able to beat Bama. And the thing is, generally, these SEC teams, like I know Alabama's playing Chattanooga this week. Usually, these SEC teams play a an FCS team, a really low rated FBS team. Like I'm seeing, like Florida plays Missouri because they have to. I think that's how it worked out. But like Arkansas is playing Florida International. Um, LSU is playing Georgia State. Um, Georgia has to play Tennessee. There's some if they're not playing a conference game, you're playing like an FCS team, like a nothing FCS team, or like a low FBS team. I think when they scheduled New Mexico State, they didn't think they
Oh
were going
yeah.
to be good,
Oh no,
and I
yeah. This had
think
to be way before Jerry Kill was there.
this would be years ago. And I
Yeah.
think this has we are going to look right over them. New Mexico State is a good team that's been continually dissed by the books all year.
Yeah. Yep.
I think like you have to bet New Mexico State here. And like you're getting 10-1 on the money line. Like they could. And the thing is, like I would have no problem, and I'll have to see what the model says, but I have no problem betting New Mexico State this week, and then betting Auburn next week against Bama. No problem at all. And because like that could happen. Like New Mexico
Yeah.
State's good. They're a good team, and
Yep.
like the thing is, they were dogs. They were 4-point dogs to Western Kentucky. They crushed them. Like they won, I think, by multiple scores. Like
13, I think it was. Yeah.
yeah, like this team is good. This is not a bad. Like I know people are like, oh, it's New Mexico State. This is not a bad team. Like this spread should not be this big. I think Auburn had a spread similar to this against UMass. I think it was like a 30-point spread against UMass, and they crushed UMass. But New Mexico State is way better than UMass, right? Like this should not be this. Is my take on it, and yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, it's you and I know better. That was the game where Pomachan got hurt. Actually, was that UMass Auburn game?
yes, mm-hmm.
And maybe this is informing some of the market. Now, I'm not saying that it should be like. I can't imagine it would ever be below this number. It just wouldn't. It just wouldn't. They take too much Auburn money if they go below this. I can't imagine it going lower than this.
Well, it's actually
Maybe
gone.
that's
I will say it's gone up. Actually, it's down to
yeah,
23.
yeah. I got 20. Oh, geez. Okay, I might grab more. What's interesting is UMass is actually the common opponent. Remember, UMass beat New Mexico State in week 0, and I kind of thought, what the hell is this? New Mexico State's going to stink this year. And we never know because then you've got that weird. Okay, then Pomachan got hurt in the Auburn game, and he hasn't been the same since. So maybe that's kind of informing this too, aside from the brands, where there's some kind of like, oh, Auburn just crushed UMass and they beat New Mexico. So, I love this spot. I love it. I love it. I love it. Jerry killing 21 points when he's being totally overlooked. I'll take that all the time. If
It's
I
up,
only
it's
have
up
to
to
win,
23.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think I'm going to have like
definitely.
three sets of numbers on this game. It's going to be the spread I bet on Sunday, the spread I bet on Tuesday, then the spread I bet on Thursday, and then the spread I bet on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
At
those
some
numbers are
point
going
you're
to just
going to
keep
get
going
into
up.
getting the alt spreads.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, like here's the thing. Like an alt spread is like okay, obviously you're getting 10-1 money line, and you love to cash that. But like if you think this game is decided, like you can get like plus 7.5 or probably like 7-1, right?
mhm.
And like that's perfect backup in case something like that that soul crushing pick six or something happens. Like that happens, you're fine. You're like okay, I've got plus 7.5 at like 7-1, so I'm fine.
Yeah, speaking of soul crushing pick six, this was very resonant and reminiscent of that Jacksonville State at South Carolina game. I don't think
Yes.
Auburn's as bad as South Carolina, but man, this is just it's all the same signs. Really feisty, good Conference USA team with one loss, totally being overlooked going into a Southeastern Conference team venue. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, next game, UCF at Texas Tech. So I'd love to know how Texas Tech is giving three here. Let's not overlook. Now, maybe there's just a disbelief in UCF and just saying, well, that game just got away from them or got away from Oklahoma State. I want to point out that Texas Tech scored, what was it, 17 points? I think against Kansas. A Kansas defense, which is improved, but still not very good. And that was with their backup quarterback. You need to be scoring 30 points in that spot. And again, I'm not going to say that UCF has an awesome defense, although Oklahoma State might have a different opinion. I know Texas Tech is a weird, tough place to play, but I don't think I don't think it's really crazy that both of our models have UCF straight up here.
Yes, but at the same time, getting a little tired of getting burned by UCF. Now, to be fair, we didn't get burned by them last week, but I remember the last time we had UCF favored in a game like this, and then, well, no, I mean, it's a dog, but I remember when we had them favored against, what was it, West Virginia, and then they just completely just did nothing.
Yeah, true.
I will say it's interesting Texas Tech is getting so much love on the betting line, considering the fact that they're playing Texas next week.
Yeah.
And because again, I pointed this out last week. It was weird how it was like TCU crushes or Texas Tech crushes TCU, and then TCU's only getting 12 to Texas. When like what is that spread next week then? Like that's like it was like Texas was giving TCU I think like 12 or 13 somewhere. I think yours was confirmed and then it came back up a bit. But like Texas Tech crushed TCU I think by like two scores, like 14 points. So then how does that spread work then? Is the spread like the spread would theoretically be even, but it's not going to be even. But it's going to be like
I
what
don't know.
Texas minus set. But like, does that mean that game is potentially competitive? I don't know. But anyways, that's a conversation for next week. But yeah, maybe
Yeah.
UCF has figured some stuff out. I don't know. They passed for 600 yards. They had 600 yards against Oklahoma State. I don't know.
Yep.
We can step on that rake again. Let's try.
Okay. We talked about this one already. Marshall at South Alabama. I really like this dual model play. Definitely grabbed that already. Old Dominion at Georgia Southern. Interesting. I really don't like. How do I say this? I get a little uneasy when a team I bet on all of a sudden I'm supposed to go against the next week. And ODU's been just a weird kind of I don't know how they're getting it done team, but they have been getting it done somehow. And then the fact that your model actually likes them more than mine does is really interesting. And it may go back to, Georgia Southern throws the heck out of the ball, but they do throw a lot of interceptions. And ODU had a good pass defense. They were actually top 10 for a while there, and I still don't know how that happened. Maybe that's the difference here. But your model likes them better than I do, so I grabbed ODU here.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I randomly like ODU in random places, so I think I'll take them. Yeah.
Okay. This is the other one that was a similar profile, yet very different from New Mexico State at Auburn. FIU, who's sadly proven to be very beatable. Um, I have them keeping it within 7 of Arkansas. Now, Arkansas had just a huge offensive output two games ago. Then they couldn't do anything against Auburn. They're giving 30 to FIU. I've got it just a 7-point game. Even at 21, that's 9-point margin on your model. So
So,
I have to play this. And again, I did check. The quarterback is not hurt for FIU.
yeah. I will say the fact that I have Arkansas's 21-point favorites renews my because like here's the thing, if I had this as close to as well as the New Mexico State Auburn game, then I might start questioning it, and I'd be like, oh, maybe I just have Conference USA super highly power ranked, but I don't because clearly my model still likes Arkansas here. So I now trust the model. The thing is, Arkansas should probably not be favored against about 30-point favorites against probably anybody. To be fair. So, I mean, they had one good offensive week against Florida, who's apparently a very bad defense. So, I kind of don't hate. But again, Florida International was pretty bad too. So, but the thing is, when you're looking at like a 30-point spread, it's basically like, can FIU score? If they score, then they cover. If they don't, then they're done. Right? Like, with a lot of these, it's like, okay, but I don't know. So we'll see. I'll think. I will think about this one. I probably will end up with something FIU on the spread. Not touching the money line on this one, but a spread bet would be fine.
Okay. And then lastly, San Jose State giving 13. This is actually up to 14.5, although it's still a dual model play even at that price. I got them by 24. You actually have them by 25. Very comforting that we have this almost by the exact same margin. And then also confirmed by them in my top 10 of the G5, which that makes me even much more confident here. I mean, it's, go, go, go. I got 3 go signs here. So I've played this already.
Yeah. I mean, it's a rivalry game, yes, but it is in San Jose. Like this is like a classic.
Is that San Diego State? Oh, it is it. Oh, sorry. I got that backwards.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to fix that.
Yeah,
nope,
I think
you're right.
I just saw from my book. But yeah, again, like this is like, hey, you absolutely destroy Fresno State. This shouldn't even be close. Like this screams like 3-score game.
Yep.
And like the fact that it's at 14.5, that's people saying, oh, okay, well we fired our head coach, now we're gonna be better. It's like, well, no, there's no one left now, so like
there's no one left. Well, he's still there. I don't think that's a good thing, all things considered.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, well, that's the thing with some of these. It's like
he's going to retire, which is a nice way of saying he was asked not to return. Okay, and then the wrong team's favored. UCF we both have, and then it didn't make it as a play against the number, but Utah State I have as, I'll just pull up the numbers here. They're going against Boise State, so there's a little bit of a wild card factor there.
Is Andy Avalos still? Is he just gone, or is he's gone? Okay,
he's gone. Yeah. Where is you? Come on, Boise State. Oh, there it is. So you actually have Utah State by 3. I have them by 4. So the magic is basically if my model has them by 4, then it's a wrong team favorite. And I just said, okay, if you've got them by a score as well, that's enough. So we had one play last week that was UCF that brought it, against, and again, wrong team favorite. This is just money line that we're talking about. So money line plays on these dogs for the season are 6-4 with a 52% ROI. It's amazing how quickly these add up. You just hit, a few of these in a row, and the ROI just completely piles up here. So, all right. Jesus, this is going to make it like unanimous. So the Temple is actually a dual model play. What plays do you have aside since we've got mine and then a bunch of dual model plays? What about you?
Yeah, all right. I'll start with 1 second. I got burned a little by this last week, but I kind of like Florida plus the points. Maybe even some money line there against Missouri. I know they destroyed Tennessee, but Florida also destroyed Tennessee, so there's a chance there. Florida needs one more win for bowl eligibility, so that's not necessarily a bad play.
All right, so I'm showing 11.5.
Yeah. Do you have Arizona as a play or not?
I don't, but let me just show you, or let me just pick up what. So I've got it's about as close as can be. I've got them by 7, and they're giving 1.
Okay, I'll make that up to
And
one of my plays.
you've got them by 19. I just
Yeah.
if that moves, but I don't think it will.
No.
That's as close as it can be to being a play. So Arizona -1. Okay.
And then I will also put this is gonna be crazy. 2 crazy ones. Sam Houston State plus 13.5. Maybe even a little bit of money line there against Western Kentucky. They may have figured out
Well,
how to
no.
do this.
They don't. No. They play Jacksonville.
No, they play Western
Sam
Kentucky.
Houston. Okay, sorry.
Houston State. Yeah.
My bad. Yeah.
And then
Plus 13.
yeah, plus 13. Well, it was 13.5. It's 12.5 now. I'll still take the 12.5. More
Okay.
than a score and more than the 10. And yeah, let's step in front of this train. North Carolina plus 6.5 against Clemson. Let's do this. Something bad will happen. But okay. I have concerns about a team rushing the field after you win in double overtime by 2 against a team you are favored by 2 scores against. But I can't.
No, it makes sense. I mean, you've got them by 13. I mean, that's just such a margin there versus the spread that you got to take that.
I don't think Clemson is good. And like Duke is like not bad too. Like I can't. Okay, Clemson beat Notre Dame, but my model doesn't like Notre Dame either. And like they beat Georgia Tech, which my model also didn't like Georgia Tech. Like my model has been pretty good on Clemson the last couple of weeks, and it hates them against North Carolina. So I gotta think there's something there.
Yeah, agree.
And those are my plays.
Okay, cool. And with that, we thank everybody for listening to this 1 hour and 50 plus minutes. We appreciate you listening. Good luck to everybody.
This 2 parts. We have a 3-parter this week. 3-parter.
Thank you for listening, and good luck this week. We'll talk to you all next week.
See ya.